3 commercial ships were struck in under 24 hours. An engine room blast at 8:15. The Strait of Hormuz, 21 nautical miles wide, with $15 billion in cargo at risk, is now a combat zone. Washington vowed to hit back 20 times harder, striking over 5,000 targets in 10 days. But the battle for the strait was far from over. What Iran left beneath the surface was designed to make firepower irrelevant. At 8:15 local time, the Thai-flagged bulk carrier Mayuri Nari suffered a sudden blast in the engine room as it transited the narrowest stretch of the Strait of Hormuz. Shipboard CCTV captured the moment, a flash, and then a plume of smoke rising from the starboard side. Just minutes later, the Star Gwyneth, a Marshall Islands registered bulk carrier, recorded a shock impact on its hull, forcing crew to reduce speed and patch a breach on the fly. A Japanese container ship, 9 decks tall and loaded with thousands of containers, reported a near miss. Crew heard a heavy thud, but the vessel escaped with only minor system faults. All 3 attacks unfolded within a 13-minute window, confirmed by automatic identification system logs and satellite images showing smoke and thermal anomalies at the exact times of impact. The United Kingdom Maritime Trade Operations Centre issued an emergency bulletin at 8:45. Incident alert. 3 vessels struck. Suspend all transits. The advisory named each vessel, urging every captain in the corridor to halt movement. Crew accounts filtered out by radio described fire alarms, trapped engineers, and frantic calls for rescue. By 11 a.m., a United Arab Emirates vessel had reached the Mayuri Nari and recovered 3 crew members, 1 dead and 2 missing below deck. Damage assessments from the Star Gwyneth showed a half-meter hull breach, patched temporarily as the ship limped toward Muscat for inspection. The Japanese container ship, shaken but intact, resumed normal speed after internal checks. Automatic identification system logs show all 3 ships present and transmitting before, during, and after the strikes. No evidence of false reporting or ghost targets was found. The choke point itself, only 21 nautical miles wide, instantly became a high-risk zone. With $15 billion in daily oil and cargo at stake, the strait's vulnerability was exposed in minutes. Every shipowner, insurer, and trading house now faced a new reality. Even with overwhelming United States firepower on alert, mines, artillery, and small boat swarms could turn the world's most vital waterway into a shooting gallery without warning. The immediate question was not just who fired, but whether any force could guarantee safe passage as the crisis escalated. Washington's answer arrived before the smoke had cleared. At 1 p.m., Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth stood at the Pentagon podium, voice clipped and direct. He said, "If they strike commercial shipping, we will hit them 20 times harder. Consequences at a level never seen before." The message was matched by action. Within hours, U.S. Central Command released sortie logs showing a surge, 1,240 air missions launched on March 10th alone. F-22, Raptors, and F-35 fighters swept the corridor, hunting for missile launchers and fast attack boats. F-16 fighters, armed with AIM-9X. Sidewinders intercepted drones over open water, while B-1 Lancers and B-52s dropped JDAMs on naval yards and coastal batteries from high altitude. The Pentagon claimed the destruction of 16 Iranian mine-laying vessels in a single day. 8 small Minesweeper-class boats, 4 medium support craft with automated mine racks, and 4 retrofitted fast attack boats, all gone according to the official battle damage assessment. Secretary Hegseth called it the hardest day for Iran's navy in a generation. Satellite imagery released that evening showed blackened hulls at Larak and Karg, with secondary explosions still burning near the piers. The operational tempo shifted sharply. The U.S. established a continuous blue dome over the strait, fighter patrols circling every hour, persistent MQ-9 Reaper surveillance, and undersea Lamprey drones sweeping for new mines. The aim was clear: deny Iran the power to choke the world's most vital waterway. But even as the list of destroyed mine layers grew, U.S. commanders warned that asymmetric threats remained. Hundreds of fast boats, described by one analyst as little ants creating chaos, still darted in the shadows, and every hour brought new reports of drifting mines. The battle for the Strait had entered a phase where precision strike met guerrilla persistence, and the risk of escalation only grew. CENTCOM released its first battle damage assessment just hours after the initial strikes. Admiral John Cooper, commander of U.S. Naval Forces Central Command, delivered the message with precision: "If we find it, we're taking it out. Eliminate Iran's power projection capability." The official scorecard drew on satellite imagery, sortie logs, and open-source intelligence. Maxar's March 5th images showed the Lamprey-class corvette at Chabahar Pier, hull breached and debris scattered across the water, a textbook example of a warship rendered inoperable. Before and after satellite tiles confirmed the vessel's fate, intact on February 28th, and destroyed days later. OSINT analysts flagged the sudden absence of Jamaron's AIS signature after 02:15 UTC on March 1st, matching the time of the strike. CENTCOM briefings highlighted the destruction of 4 Soleimani-class missile catamarans, with Maxar and PlanetScope imagery capturing 2 hulls partially submerged and the others showing severe superstructure damage. The disappearance of these vessels from known moorings aligned with CENTCOM's claim of an entire class eliminated. Analysts noted, however, that Iranian official channels only acknowledged the Jamaran loss, with silence on the Soleimani-class. The evidence, scorched hulls, missing AIS tracks, and lack of movement, supported the U.S. tally, but left room for ambiguity. While the Pentagon's numbers painted a picture of overwhelming force, independent verification confirmed only a fraction of the claimed 60-plus targets. The operational reality: Iran's surface fleet suffered major blows, but pockets of capability and asymmetric assets remained, keeping the threat to shipping alive. Iran's surface fleet may be battered, but the danger to shipping remains stubbornly alive beneath the surface and along the shallows. Even as U.S. bombers and fighters tally up destroyed hulls, mine warfare specialists warn that the Strait's unique geography, with narrow lanes, shifting currents, and depths averaging just 40 meters, turns it into a perfect trap for mines and small boat ambushes. The destruction of 16 mine-laying vessels and several missile corvettes has thinned the ranks, but not erased the threat. Hundreds of fast attack craft, many barely larger than fishing skiffs, continue to operate out of concealed inlets, slinging improvised mines or mounting remote detonated charges. U.S. analysts describe these boats as little ants creating chaos. They can swarm a tanker or merchant ship in minutes, exploiting gaps in radar and air cover. Unmanned surface vessels, some jury-rigged with explosives and others designed to lay shallow water mines, slip through at night, hugging the seabed where sonar returns blur with natural clutter. Intelligence reports suggest that at least a dozen new minefields have been seeded since the initial strikes, using magnetically triggered devices set for depths of 20 to 30 meters. The persistent threat of mines and swarm attacks forces every ship to slow, zigzag, and rely on the constant vigilance of mine warfare teams. Even with the Blue Dome's aerial shield, the battle for the Strait is far from over. The next phase demands a layered defense: air, surface, and undersea, capable of countering threats that do not announce themselves until the damage is done. Coalition commanders activated Blue Dome as soon as merchant ships came under fire. F-22 and F-35 aircraft circled the Strait in overlapping shifts, their sensors feeding a constant stream of radar and infrared data into the command center. Below the surface, Lamprey undersea drones swept the shipping lanes, using synthetic aperture sonar to detect and map even the smallest metallic objects. These unmanned patrols ran for 72 hours at a stretch, identifying and neutralizing mines with a detection rate above 90% and 0 false positives, a first for any system under live fire conditions. On the surface, high-power microwave arrays and 150 kilowatt lasers targeted swarms of Shahed drones and remote-controlled boats. In one trial, a laser burned through steel at 2 kilometers, and HPM bursts disabled guidance systems before suicide boats could close in. F-16 aircraft based in Dubai fired AIM-9X, sidewinders at low-flying drones, recording over 100 confirmed kills in the first days. The result was a layered shield across air, sea, and undersea domains, forcing Iranian attackers to operate at the margins or risk immediate destruction. Admiral John Cooper summed up the approach: "If we find it, we're taking it out." The IRGC quickly seized control of the story, labeling the closure of the Strait of Hormuz as economic terrorism by the West. On Iranian state television, officials claimed responsibility for the attacks, but insisted sanctions and energy blockades were the real aggression. The message echoed across news outlets and social media, reframing the strikes as a response to Western economic pressure. U.S. planners and insurers rushed to assess the fallout. Lloyd's Register estimated $15 billion in daily cargo exposure through the strait, a figure that sent shockwaves through global markets. Overnight, marine insurance rates for Gulf transits tripled, with war risk premiums jumping from $1,200 to nearly $6,000 per vessel. Each anchored ship became a high-stakes liability, and risk models warned that even brief disruptions could snarl supply chains for weeks. The IRGC warning was unmistakable. Any attempt to reopen the strait would spark further attacks. Tehran's proxies, Houthi missile teams, and Hezbollah rocketeers threatened to widen the conflict. Pentagon analysts flagged the risk of synchronized proxy strikes, cyber sabotage, and direct attacks on U.S. leadership. The next move would decide if the world's busiest oil corridor remained open, or if the region edged closer to war. Tonight, U.S. strike packages fly, but mines and swarm boats still haunt the lanes. Chaos, like little ants, is never fully crushed. The Blue Dome holds, yet every cargo ship is a test. When escalation carries consequences never seen before, deterrence becomes a razor's edge. The strait remains contested,